is there. So that happens in terms of culture. So I will agree with Sister Pingy more than you think on where that is. But it's not to say, though, I don't want us to miss the point that in the midst of all of that, there are genuine cases too.
I believe in miracle and I believe that Jesus hears us when we pray. And I believe that Jesus heals us, of course. But listen to me, sir.
Sometime a
Yes, something is
performance, some stuff, some
something I
stuff.
believe you will catch this or yet, sir. If you don't reach this or yet. So I
Some
believe it.
some is to extra. For me, I believe for those who are gifted in something, blessings to you once it is being genuine. So if you have the gift of discernment, genuinely, blessings to you. Or if you have the gift of unknown language or whatever that is, blessings to you. I have no challenge with those things once it is genuine. But you won't get me trying to create a hype or an excitement when I know genuinely I can't speak in tongues, and me I try to make up some stuff just for entertainment's sake, right? So that's in terms of performance in some cases. We should be moving on to the party. Do you think we can take that? It can be. We must go to the party because we must take it while it's hot. Because if we put it off to next week, the steam will gone from the renter. Yeah. And it'll get tough. Okay, can we have a volunteer reader verses 30 or 29, sorry, verses.
And Levi made him a great feast in his own house. And there was a great company of publicans and of others that sat down with them. But their scribes and Pharisees murmured against his disciples, saying, Why do you eat and drink with publicans and sinners? And Jesus answering said unto them, They that are whole need not a physician, but they that are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance.
Thank you.
And they said,
Oh, we could pause there. It is the same. It's the same sequence, but we will pause there for those expressions, and then we continue. Continue to the end is all connected, but we'll stop at verse 32 for now. All right. So this excitement is there. You can see that Matthew is really a street person. You know that him a party person. So he still think it's in him that I must do this for Jesus. So he has a party going, and he invite Jesus as a guest at the party, and not just him, but his disciples were there as well, and. But the company that he was there, how do you see this? They were murmuring. So Jesus was, the company Jesus was sitting with, because he's a teacher. And it is not, and you're a teacher of the group that we are a part of Judaism, the faith. And you are sitting with these persons. It is not right for you to be sitting with persons of that kind, you know. You should be sitting with the teachers or the teachers and persons of your class. Your caliber. Yes. You. Oh yes, the Pharisees have. Remember, the Pharisees have been trailing him and have been. So they were murmuring among themselves. Jesus would either discern or have heard or suspected that.
That he said that he's whosoever he is, and they don't want to hear that, you know what I'm saying?
Here is what Jesus was on a special mission, and here Jesus' response to their murmuring, which is key, is the reason why he came. He came for sinners. So unless you're sick, you don't need a you don't need a doctor. Right, right. So this is the reason for which he come. He come to call sinners to repentance. It shows openness as well, that the invitation to salvation is open. So that's the point we see coming out. Openness. It's not limited to a race or gender, class, language, but he came for all. Jesus come for one. He come for all. Come for a poor one like me. So it's the persons who Jesus was willing to sit and associate with. So Jesus was countercultural. In one sense, that the culture which they ascribed to him was to sit with the upper class. But he was also, we could also see this as Jesus of culture, because the culture then was, partying, and he believed he could participate in that. He endorsed that as well. We must note what we must note as well about this response in terms of the party and salvation. There's a joy which comes with salvation. The hymn writer says, "Come and rejoice with me, for once my heart was poor, and now I found a treasure of love, a boundless store. Come and rejoice with me, for once my heart was poor." Oh, yes. Oh, okay. And I found a treasury of love, a boundless store. All right. So that we have there this rejoicing, this joy which comes, and he couldn't contain it. He have to go and share it. And it is perhaps Matthew have started engaging the mission already, because he keep it with his friends, the other publicans, and that's how. So he was already an evangelist. You see, the evangelist coming out was already responding to the mission. There is a parable there. A parable. Before even the parable, they were concerned about the whole fasting and prayer, but perhaps how they understand it, which takes us into the parable. It's a parable about the old and the new wine and bottle. Verses 36. And he spake also a parable unto them. No man putteth a piece of a new garment upon an old, if otherwise then both the old make it a rent, and the piece that was taken out of the new agree not with the old. And no man putteth new wine into old bottles, else the new wine will burst the bottles and be spilled, and the bottles shall perish. But new wine must be put into new bottles, and both are preserved. No man also having drunk old wine straightway desireth new, for he saith the old is better. A very strange parable. We like some of the others. How do we see this parable? Right. It is not the typical ones like the parable of the sower, the parable of the lost son, parable of the lost sheep. It sounds so nice that we would we just like reading it. It just makes a good devotion. But this one, And the new garment, patching clothes. What is
Covering
the
up, yeah,
explanation?
covering up your sins. Cover, it's there.
Using new
And
clothes to cover the
just
old
like
one.
use, just a camouflage and use
And the
covering up.
in scriptures we hear reference of old and new. When would we normally hear this reference of old and new? Old Testament, New Testament, or Old Covenant, New Covenant. The Old Covenant then would be what? Of Moses, the law, of Mosaic law. And the new then, the new covenant would be this is this is the new covenant in my blood. So the new covenant is sealed with his blood. So we're talking about Calvary and the event of Calvary. So they wanted to put around Matthew's neck the the law, requirements of the law, that he shouldn't be doing some things. That he shouldn't be going to parties and so forth, and how he should fast and pray. So it's referring to and we see in the New Testament, such as Paul, there was a debate between the law, how we should relate to the law, how we should understand the law. It's not saying the law is finished. How do we regard it? It is a foreshadow of things to come. So the law was actually fulfilled in Jesus. It was pointing to Jesus and the work of Calvary. So grace is much better. Grace, you cannot work for it. It is God's unmerited. Merited mean to work, to earn. So it is unmerited. It is unearned. You cannot earn it. You cannot work for salvation. It is by grace through faith alone. So it is saying that if you should try to pour out the Ten Commandments in Calvary, it would destroy that bottle, that old bottle. You know, right? So if you should try to pour out the old wine in the new, it would burst it, right? And the same for the reverse. So it is talking about the law, the old law, and the Pharisees were very obsessed about the law there. So all of here is connected with Levi coming to Christ now, and he has agreed to follow Jesus, and he is keeping a party, and Jesus is, as a teacher of the faith, is also at this party. So Jesus summed it up by using using illustration to teach spiritual matters. Any closing question?
Can we make the children of the bread change or fast even while the bread will be?
Repeat that one, illustrations to teach.
Parables, using earthly illustration to teach spiritual matters. Some books will say use earthly things to teach heavenly things. But I prefer to word it to say use earthly illustrations to teach spiritual things. Spiritual would be heavenly. To teach spiritual things. So I thought of use spiritual to replace heavenly. But most books would say use earthly things to teach heavenly things. Heavenly truth. Okay, so next time we meet, we will be looking at chapter 6. So we are reviewing chapter 6 rather, because we should be at chapter 7. So maybe I should come in without, because we haven't been attending to our homework. But nevertheless, chapter 6 should be assigned, and we'll be skipping through chapter 6 as we make our way to where we left off, which is Luke chapter 7. So for our homework should be Luke chapter 6. Luke chapter 6.
Okay, if you're reading this on the surface and you don't know all of what you're explaining to us, where do you go to find out this interpretation?
We're going to find all of this interpretation.
Where do you go to find
Yes, I know, and especially some of the commentaries which are so basic. I would suppose that's where it is helpful in terms of Bible study. So if we don't go to Bible study, then the end result is what you'd have shared. How can you be an effective preacher if you don't take Bible study seriously? You don't spend time with the Word. How can you preach what you don't spend time with?
come and say some things and you know when you sit down and hear sometimes, you know.
You wonder.
Hold my teeth.
Yeah, but yeah, right. Some,
I was
cause
saying something, Sister Pink, about Adam. Anyhow, whatever.
right. So Bible study is important, and that's, I believe, then that's where the work of a pastor comes in. For just like a teacher in class, you'd have just presented a lesson. I have just presented a lesson, right? So that's where it comes in with the pastor supposed to help us to develop that, even if there is a time when there is no pastor for that interval, we would still be able to cope with what we have received until the journey continues.
And the thing is that when you don't understand certain things, you don't come with your own interpretation.
But the bigger one though is to treat Bibles.
Believe it when you don't understand, right? You don't come and say what cannot go so. Anyhow,
The one as I said, to treat Bible study. What my response would be: to treat Bible study important, because it is through this that, because the reality is that not everybody will be able to go to UTC. That's the reality, because it's expensive. It's expensive. You're looking at 1.5 to 2 million per year, times 4. It's expensive. So the aim is one, receive and distribute. So that's the purpose. So the pastor would have had the exposure and to help to spread, to scatter, just like how Jesus would have received and pass on. That which I receive, I now pass on to you. So he trained the disciples as part of discipleship, and then each disciple should go and make other disciples. So the multiplication.
okay, don't you agree then that the privilege is yours to do the best thing? That what you plan to do, you research.
Right, you research and seek help. If you check with the pastor too, seek help. But some of us, we believe we have exclusive access to the Spirit, or we probably may label pastor as already boring. Some, you don't want him come boring up my thing. This is my opportunity to be lively. So. Some persons just think that they already know the truth, so they just it, But that's the pastor would. I mean, of course, you probably know you want to give the pastor breathing space sometimes, but the pastor can help to offer guidance when necessary, if the person is open. That is. But even with the best, though, it will not be perfected. To know, though, you have some real good lay preachers, but even with the best effort, you still have error. Just like English, there is nobody who has perfected English, not even one with a master's degree. Right? It's always evolving. Right. I heard an English teacher when I was in Montego Bay doing the TDM program said that no matter how the person so nice and fancy and with an accent, sometimes that's just a twang. But if you know the grammar, no matter how perfect the person might sound, there are slippages, right? You'll never master everything. It's so complicated. So it's the same thing with preaching. It's a work in progress. We can do better. I'll say that we preachers can do better for the fact that some persons, some stuff they consider lively, begs the question. But at the same time, you just have to work. You also have to work with what you have as well, to know that. I mean, the work continues. I mean, you can't wait until you have a A plus in the art before you exercise the art. It's a work in progress. But I do get the feeling, though, that persons who just don't make any effort, that I probably get that point is to be noted. Persons who can do better, but also to balance it, that persons who are at different places and are also genuinely trying. What I must know, though, to add, that those who do share, we have to encourage them along, because not everybody is willing to share. So sometimes the reality of church and pastoring sometimes is those who
You need to ask, come up and give
is
a wrong interpretation.
it's a journey. The church,
He said that I need my son around to keep.
oh, gee.